Things have gone from bad to worse for Seattle's socialist disaster mayor Katie Wilson. Once the darling of the radical left, her administration is imploding more and more each and every day in front of live cameras. We're talking a mass shooting, a cover-up of silence, a fired popular police chief thrown under the bus, and now the citizens of Seattle have had enough. They want her out now. The receipts are in, and they're more devastating than anyone could have ever imagined. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your pager professor, here to help you make sense of the madness with breaking news and analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. So you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. So let's set the scene here. On July 26th, a mass shooting tore through the Bite of Seattle festival at Seattle Center, killing 3 people and wounding several more in what police described as a gang-related gunfight. It was a horrific scene and one that required the competent, steady leadership of a mayor of one of America's major cities. Unfortunately, Seattle voted in the radical socialist Katie Wilson, and just months into her first term, her leadership skills were put to the test, and the result was more disastrous than anything anyone could have possibly imagined. Wilson's administration drew heavy criticism from the get-go because Seattle officials stayed publicly silent for hours after the shooting. Critics said that this communication vacuum reflected a broader failure of leadership at the moment the city needed reassurance the most. And things got so bad that Wilson actually turned around and fired her police chief, the very popular Sean Barnes, turning him into the fall guy, the scapegoat for everything. When she finally did step up to the podium for a press conference, things got even worse.
I understand that many of my colleagues on the city council disagree with the decision to move forward with a leadership change at SPD at this time. I am making what I firmly believe is the right decision at the right time.
The optics are that you are making Chief Barnes the fall guy for missteps that happened after the Seattle Center shooting, including the 5-hour lack of information, except for a statement from your office which contained errors. What do you want members of the public who say you've made him the fall guy?
Yeah, I'll just say again, I firmly believe that I'm making the right decision at the right time, and part of this is a feeling of urgency around upcoming events this summer, including this weekend, wanting to make sure that we have the right leadership in place at SPD, the right communications protocols, so that as we move forward, we can be much clearer with the public.
It was a disaster, as has been her entire administration. And there was one reporter there that read her the riot act for just how unpopular she is, even with her own Democrat colleagues.
Mayor, this is obviously the biggest decision you've made during your term. The council is not here. The council is not standing behind you. The council, as you know, has criticized, and I want to get down to their exact words. Joy Hollingsworth, the council president, called this move irresponsible and it's a tad bit reckless. Deborah Juarez says the emergent issue is this: you do not fire your chief of police in the middle of a murder investigation. What we're seeing under this administration, her words, are more than just gaffes or missteps. I see a complete lack of leadership, and for some of us, no confidence in this administration. This has reached a level where we have to have a serious conversation about the confidence we have in this executive. So this is your chance to respond to the council. Why should the city of Seattle and this council have confidence in your leadership going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll repeat what I said to one of your colleagues here, which is that I respect their differences of opinion. And as the mayor, as the executive of the city, I do have a different window into our police department than they do. And I'm making the decision that I believe is best and urgent at this time for our police department and for this city.
So the Democratic Socialist mayor, elected on a platform of community trust and police accountability, fires their black police chief that the black community wanted to keep in the middle of an active murder investigation and offered the city nothing. Nothing. No real explanation, no accountability on our part, literally nothing. Just vague talking points, as you just heard, repeated ad nauseum. And the people of Seattle have had it. On August 11th, Seattle residents Melinda Jacobson and her husband Dale Osterud filed formal recall charges against Wilson and King County elections. They cited a number of things: her failure to address crime, her failure to address drug activity, the gun violence that's been unleashed on Aurora Avenue and in Little Saigon, her efforts to deactivate CCTV cameras throughout the city, and her handling of Police Chief Barnes' ousting as grounds for, quote, dereliction of duty. Now, if the charges now go to the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office for technical review. If they clear that bar, prosecutors draft a ballot synopsis, and it heads to King County Superior Court, where a judge decides whether the allegations meet the legal standards of malfeasance or violation of oath of office and the like. Only after that could supporters then begin gathering the roughly 70,000 signatures, 25% of the total votes cast in the last mayoral election, needed within 180 days to force an actual recall election. Now, keep in mind, Wilson barely won back in November. She won with less than 1% of the vote, the smallest margin of victory for a Seattle mayor in a century. So she's never been a particularly popular mayor. And I would not be surprised in the least if those 70,000 signatures appeared very, very quickly. And this isn't the first time Seattle's gone down this road. Back in 2020, then Mayor Jenny Durkin faced a nearly identical recall charge. It actually made it all the way to the Washington State Supreme Court, which struck it down before it ever reached voters. But hopefully this recall effort will sustain legal scrutiny. But regardless, there is something that should terrify Katie Wilson far more than a recall petition. It's something being built by her own city's residents, not pundits, not Fox News, not some outside agitator, her own city's residents, line by line, neighborhood by neighborhood, and it threatens to only get infinitely worse. But first, who loves sushi? I know I do. I am a huge, my wife's from Japan. My whole family loves sushi, as do a growing number of Americans. In fact, over the last 2 decades, raw fish consumption has exploded. Sushi bars are everywhere. Grocery stores and gas stations sell it, and millions of people now eat raw fish weekly. But there is a hidden risk most people never think about: parasites. Salmon's one of the worst. It's one of the most popular fish worldwide, but it naturally contains more than 70 parasites. Now, most are tiny and nearly impossible to see, and they're making their way into the human body. Once inside, parasites can hide for years while frequently laying eggs before any symptoms appear. This is why many physicians are raising awareness about parasite exposure. Dr. Peter McCullough recommends doing a parasite cleanse at least once a year as a preventative measure. The wellness company offers a hard-to-access RX parasite cleanse, USA compounded ivermectin and mebendazole. Ivermectin paralyzes the parasite's nervous system, while mebendazole starves them. Each capsule contains 25 milligrams of ivermectin and 250 milligrams of mebendazole, lab tested for quality. And you can now get a more budget-friendly 45 capsule option that costs $250 less, giving you 2 21-day parasite cleanse cycles. Same formula as the original, just a smaller quantity. Head on over to twc.health/Turley and use code Turley to save $52 off plus free shipping, USA residents only. Let's zoom out here, because this isn't just about Katie Wilson. This is not a Katie Wilson problem entirely. It's a Seattle problem. It's a Seattle Democrat problem. What we're seeing here with Katie Wilson is a pattern of a wider political pattern. It's part of a wider political pattern. Seattle mayors have been an absolute revolving door of dysfunction for the better part of a decade. Back in 2017 alone, Seattle burned through 4 different mayors in 3 months. Did you know that? I kid you not. 4 mayors in 3 months. So Ed Murray resigned amid a scandal. Bruce Harrell held a seat for literally 5 days. Tim Burgess filled it after that. And then finally, Jenny Durkin took over to, quote, end the revolving door, right? She lasted exactly one term before voters unseated her in favor of Bruce Harrell. Harrell served one term before losing to, you guessed it, Katie Wilson by a margin of roughly 91 votes. 91 votes. It's the smallest margin in over a century for a Seattle mayoral race. That's hardly a socialist mandate. That's a coin flip that happened to land on socialism. So the pattern here is unmistakable. Seattle voters keep electing mayors who last on average about one term before the city either fires them at the ballot box or the mayor resigns in disgrace. And now, 7 months into her tenure, we may already be looking at the latest mayoral casualty in the same broken cycle, except this time they may not even wait for the next election. They're trying to yank her out early. And Seattle isn't alone. This is what I'd call the great municipal socialist buyer's remorse sweeping across America's blue cities. Take Chicago. Mayor Brandon Johnson, another self-described progressive who wrote a wave of enthusiasm in office back in 2023, he's posted some of the worst approval numbers of any big city mayor in modern American history, cratering to just 6% approval in one poll. That was the lowest ever recorded for a major American politician before crawling back up into the low 20s. Nearly 70% of Chicago voters disapproved of his handling of crime and the migrant crisis at various points. And even after murders hit a decade low, thank you, President Trump, his approval barely budged. That's what happens when a socialist governs a city into the ground. Even good news can't save you because the voters already know who's driving the bus off the cliff. And then, of course, there's New York City. The latest Morris poll shows Mayor Zohran Mamdani entering office with the weakest early favorability of New York's last three mayors, trailing Eric Adams, Bill de Blasio, and the like. That smaller cushion signals that Mamdani has less goodwill to fall back on as his socialist tax agenda draws radical scrutiny, leaving him needing to convert a very narrow positive rating into real confidence in his leadership. And given the broader pattern that we're seeing across the country here, good luck with that. I mean, scratch beneath the personal popularity ratings, and you find the exact same economic rot Katie Wilson is living through in Seattle. Business leaders have openly warned of a corporate exodus tied to Mamdani's tax the rich agenda, with reports of thousands of businesses eyeing the exits and firms like Apollo Global Management scouting second headquarters in the Sun Belt. You got billionaire Ken Griffin. He's pledged to pour more investment into Florida, specifically in response to Mamdani's new taxes on the wealthy, which then loops us back to Katie Wilson, because Seattle was basically a preview of where Chicago and New York are both headed if they don't course correct. Wilson didn't just inherit a mess. She helped design the Jumpstart payroll tax that a Downtown Seattle Association report now links to roughly 30,000 lost downtown jobs. A 48% collapse in office property values and an office vacancy rate that skyrocketed from 6.7% back in 2019 to now over 32% today, making downtown Seattle the single worst major commercial real estate market in the entire country. She's now staring down a $488 million projected deficit over 3 years, with $175 million of that gap needing to close in the very next budget cycle. Her response has been a scattershot mix of department budget cuts, a capital gains tax that would take 2 years to implement and raise a mere $40 million, an illegal city income tax proposal, and a fire district scheme her own firefighters union rejected as logistically impossible. So here's the question for Seattle. Does this recall actually go anywhere? Or does it die in the courts like the last one did back in 2020? And if it does, are you prepared, citizens of Seattle, to finally admit your decades-long mistake and turn your back on a political party that has economically and culturally decimated your city? If so, welcome home. If not, you deserve every bit of the disaster you're about to get. You've got enough on your plate. You shouldn't have to babysit the news cycle too. Let me carry that noise for you. I'll sift it, I'll watch it, and I'll tell you what really matters for your home so you can lead in peace, not panic. Hit the link below to get my Patriot Alerts and let me help you protect your family with clarity every single day.